Okay, in progress. All right, so this week we have one of the most interesting Torah portions because it contains so many different important stories. The very beginning of it is takes place after Avraham Avinu, after Abraham was circumcised. That's where we left off last week. And so the Midrash, the rabbinic interpretation, plays around with that to suggest that this event, the events that we read about this week, all occurred right after Abraham was still in the recovery stage of after his Brit Milah, his ritual circumcision. And it says, Vayer alav Adonai el Avram Avraham, that God appears to Avraham be'elonei Mamre, by the terebinth or the oak tree of Mamre, b'chom hayom, in the heat of the day. So now, so we left that out. He was sitting in the tent, opening to the tent. The rabbis interpret every word as being meaningful. It's like, very straight literary criticism, that there's nothing accidental, that the Torah is a work, that every word has meaning. Absence of a word or doubling of a word is assumed to have meaning. So the way it translates it here, the Lord appeared to him by the terebinths of Mamre. He was sitting in the entrance of the tent as the day grew hot. So the Midrash, and we'll talk about Midrash in detail later on. So the Midrash, though, builds on this description. One, it's right after he's had his circumcision. So he's still recuperating. Two, he's in the entranceway of his tent. He's right there to be able to see what's going on outside. Three, it uses a strange formulation. It doesn't say when the day was hot, kechom hayom, as they're translating, as the day grew hot. So as we're going to see, Abraham has a reputation for being generous to bring in guests. We call it Hebrew hachnasat orchim, to bring in strangers to his home, to offer them something to eat, whatever the case may be. And so that's his nature. But he's healing from his circumcision. So the Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, praised be He, doesn't want Avraham to be bothered by strangers coming by. And therefore, Avraham would go run out to greet them and bring them into his tent. So he made it grow hot. And so it's so hot that people, they found shade somewhere and they didn't continue on their journey. And then he saw, as God saw, that Avraham was unhappy. He was disappointed. So therefore, he arranges for the three messengers to appear as if they were just people walking on the path along the way. And so it says, looking up, he saw three men standing near him. As soon as he saw them, he ran from the entrance of the tent to greet them, and bowing to the ground, he said, "My lords, if it please you, do not go on past your servant." So now the straightforward reading is that Abraham looks up, he sees the three strangers, he runs to greet them, he says, "My lords," we'll come back to the Hebrew word in a moment. "And if it please you, don't go, don't pass me by." All right? So now, we're going to see how the rabbis dealt with this. So, all right, so he saw these strangers, which tells you one thing. He saw three men. When we go through the Bible, most of the time, when we are told of visitation of an angel, they look like ordinary people. The word malach, which means angel, which translated in English as angel, also means messenger. Essentially, the malachim, the angels of the Bible, for the most part, are simply meant to be understood as messengers from God. And indeed, there is going to be a message that these messengers are going to bring to Avraham. Right? Then he says Adonai in Hebrew. Now, the word Adonai here is Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud, which is how we pronounce the name of God. But here it means my Lord. Or it could be my Lords. It depends upon how you pronounce it, how you put in the nikud. They decided, following Rashi, by the way, Rashi's interpretation is that, first interpretation, is he's speaking to these strangers. Rashi, though, treats it as singular, Adonai, so he understands it to be speaking to whoever seems to be the one in charge of these three strangers. However, the Masoretic text, the text that we have in front of us, has vowels in it today. And the vowels that are associated with this Adonai are normally meant to be a reference to God. So according to the Masoretic text, Nikud, and according to the second interpretation of Rashi, Avraham is not talking to the strangers. He runs to greet the strangers and he says, by the way, God, there are these three guys coming down the road. I know you just appeared to me, but do you mind waiting while I take care of them? Right? He says, God, I'm putting you on hold. I got to take care of these strangers. To emphasize how important Achnasat Orchim is. Right? And by the way, while we're looking at different ways to interpret it, it could be the first verse is merely like a heading. God appears to him. How does God appear to him? As the angels. Throughout, again, in the Bible, often it's not clear whether the angel, the messenger of God, is speaking, whether the messenger of God is just saying the words of God, or God is speaking through the angel. We'll see that later on when we come to the burning bush and the story of Moses and that famous bush. So I make a long story short, because otherwise I'll spend the whole night on just the opening verses of this wonderful parsha. Abraham is told that he's going to have a child through Sarah, his wife, who's not a youngster anymore. Neither one of them are youngsters. And Sarah laughs, saying, I'm an old lady and my husband is old. How can we have children? And when God tells Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying that she was an old woman? He leaves out that she also said Abraham was an old man. And it'll happen. And sure enough, what we do know is that then Sarah gets pregnant. She has Isaac, and she sees Ishmael around, and she doesn't want Ishmael influencing Isaac, so she has Abraham throw them out of the camp, and that story. But between the story, those two stories, we have the story of this destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, Sodom ve'Amorah in Hebrew. And Lot is in Gomorrah and Sodom. And God says, I'm going to tell Abraham what's going to take place. And so Abraham argues with God about the city of Sodom. He says, how far be it from you to kill the innocent with the guilty? If there are 50 righteous people in the city, will you not spare it? God says, okay. He says, I don't want to bother you, God. It's like a traditional Middle Eastern haggling. What if it's only 45? Okay, 45, we'll go 45. How about 40, 30, 20? Finally, at 10, Abraham no longer argues. So now the two angels, because one of the angels is no longer around, he took care. His job was to talk to Abraham. They arrive in Sodom. Lot takes them in. There's a whole episode there. I'm going to quickly go past it. He and his family are saved. The city of Sodom is destroyed. We return to the story of Abraham and Sarah. Sarah has Isaac, and she gets rid of Ishmael. We have some intervening stories. And then finally, towards the end, we have the most famous of the stories of this week's Parsha, what is called in Hebrew, Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. God tells Abraham, I want you to take your son and offer him up as a sacrifice. All right? Take your son, your favored one, Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the heights that I will point out to you. So Abraham obeys. Isaac goes along. Now, how old is Isaac? Any guesses? Anybody want to throw out a guess? Silence. Okay. Yes.
He's an adult, right?
Is he? I'm asking you.
8 years old?
All right, we have an 8. Do I have a 9?
21.
13. I have a 13. What that go? I can't see you. I can't hear you. Oh, 10? 20?
I'm going with 10.
10.
4 years.
We really don't know. And all of your answers are probably found in some rabbinic commentary suggesting that age. Ibn Ezra says he's got to be old enough to carry a load of wood because Abraham puts it on his shoulders. Rashi notes that right after the story of Isaac's nearly being killed on the altar, the next thing we're told about is the birth of Rebecca, and then the death of Sarah. And so Rashi, as is wont, assumes that the story of the death of Sarah follows immediately after Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac. And if that's the case, then Isaac, because we know that Sarah was 127 years old when she died. And according to the Torah, she was 90 when Isaac was born. That makes Isaac 37. So take it as you will. Ibn Ezra says younger, others older, whatever. But he seems to know what's going on. He's put on the altar, and just before the crucial moment when his hand is to come down with a knife, an angel calls out to him, spare him, save his life. And indeed, that's what happens. And when Abraham looks up, he sees a ram with its horns caught in the bush, sacrifices the ram instead of his son Abraham. And that's one of the explanations why we blow the shofar on Rosh Hashanah as a reminder of Akedat Yitzchak, the binding of Isaac, the ram's horn, all that tied in together. It's a very difficult story. It is one in which we're told that God has asked Abraham to sacrifice his son, and throughout the Bible there's a tremendous condemnation of any attempt to offer child sacrifice. It's considered to be one of the worst things that you find in the world, this idea of child sacrifice. So how does that fit in? Well, again, there's a lot of literature on it. Let us just say that this was understood by the rabbis as the last test. Abraham goes through 10 tests to see how he's going to handle different challenges. And this was the last of the 10. A modern play on it, and the rabbis too asked the question, why didn't Abraham argue with God about sacrificing Isaac when he was willing to argue with God about destroying the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah? And there are other voices that say maybe Abraham didn't pass this test because God never speaks. We don't find recorded in the Torah God ever speaking to Abraham after this time. Although Abraham lives many, many years after this. But in any case, it serves as a paradigm for martyrdom. was certainly used that way by Jewish communities in the Middle Ages when they were threatened with and told either give up your life or convert to Christianity. And many preferred to die rather than to convert. And so they look to this story as an exemplar of how to face the challenges of life. You have to be sometimes willing to give up your life, because Isaac, if indeed he was aware of what was going on, he too was undergoing a test. He too was prepared to sacrifice himself, as it were, on the altar. Okay. Now that we've gone through that, I think it's time to take a look at our practice test. As I said, I try to let you know, this is really for you to see what kind of questions I'm going to ask on the bigger exam on the 15th of December. And so, and I'll give you some sort of an idea of how to prepare for what's going to transpire then. In any case, so I will just go through the questions and give you my answers. And then we will go on to our next stage, which is the Hebrew, which I will have to set up. Yes.
Are you also going to post the answers, or email us the answers?
If you want, you can mark them down yourselves now. Don't you have your tests there?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Sorry, we're just in the middle of doing something, but yeah, I will also.
I will be happy
listen to the recording as well. That's fine.
I will. It's being recorded, and I will, without taking an oath, promise I will send you the corrected versions. Okay. So number one, Jews. I gave you a choice of an ethnic group, a religious group, both or neither. I hope no one chose D, neither. The answer is really C, both. We consist of both a religious identification and as an ethnic identification. Number two, Torah means teaching, law, doctrine, all of these, none of these. Correct answer is all of these. The way the word Torah is used in Jewish tradition, it has all of these different shades of meaning. We can refer to the physical book, the scrolls, 5 books of Moses, or all of Jewish law. All right, the Jewish calendar is C, is a solar lunar calendar. Or, if you were filling in a blank, I would accept a lunar calendar that is adjusted for the solar year, because we want to make sure that the Jewish holidays fall in the proper times of the year. How many days is Rosh Chodesh? The answer is 1 or 2 days, D, right? Because sometimes Rosh Chodesh is 1 day. When the previous month is 29 days, Rosh Chodesh will be 1 day. When the previous month is 30 days, Rosh Chodesh will be the 30th day of the previous month and the first day of the upcoming month. And how many days are there in a Jewish month? Well, they alternate between 29 and 30 days, between A and B, 29 and 30. The Jewish day begins at sunset. All of our holidays, all of our calendar references use sunset. My father of blessed memory always celebrated his birthday on the wrong day. And we are convinced the reason was he was born at night, but before midnight. And so my grandparents, thinking of the Jewish calendar, always thought his legal birthday would be the next day rather than the previous day. He didn't know what his actual birthday was until he entered the army and they had his birth certificate. Number 7, Shabbat candles should be lit no later than 18 minutes before sunset. Shalom Aleichem is a hymn sung to welcome the angels at the beginning of Shabbat. That would be C. 9, Eshet Chayil is the 31st chapter of Proverbs, praises a Jewish woman. That's A. And Kiddush is B, the blessing welcoming Shabbat recited over wine. I hope we're doing okay so far. 11, under what circumstances may we suspend Shabbat rules? C, to save a life. None of the others are considered to be legitimate reasons. 12, blank loaves of bread are on the Shabbat table on Friday night. The correct answer is A, 2. On Rosh Hashanah, we dip the bread in C, honey, or we pour honey over the bread. 14, which of the following is not forbidden on Yom Kippur? And that would be C, singing. You're allowed to sing on Yom Kippur. The others are traditionally the 5 inuim, the 5 afflictions that we're not supposed to do on Yom Kippur. 15, if Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat, we blow the shofar. No, we don't. We do not blow the shofar. Okay? And Rosh Hashanah falls on Shabbat, we suspend the blowing of the shofar. If Yom Kippur falls on Shabbat, we do indeed fast. We don't suspend the fast because it falls on Shabbat. Above the ark in the synagogue, oh, I really shouldn't have had this on there because we haven't gone over that. But if you got it right, the Ner Tamid, eternal light, that's the answer. I don't know why that's there. So you got a free pass on that one. Number 18, we're allowed to cook on Yom Tov, true or false? The answer is true. You're allowed to cook on Yom Tov. Okay, so that's pretty much the way the tests are going to be. I'm not concerned with what you did tonight. You can look over and see how well you did. Was somebody
I have
wants
a
to?
question.
Yes.
Sorry, I got all of them except for 16. What
Yeah.
was the answer to 16?
16, the answer is A, we do fast.
Okay, great. That's what I thought. Just making sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sorry, I have a quick question
of
too.
course, no problem.
And I do vaguely remember it being covered, so I apologize. But with the cooking on Yom Tov, I thought we weren't allowed to use like appliances and things like that on a Yom Tov.
Well, now remember, we talked about the difference between whether you accept use of electricity or not. So we're going to put that aside at the moment. Let's just say
Right.
for the moment, you can't use electricity. All right.
Okay,
Follow that opinion, which is what I do. All right.
right.
So what we do is if I have a gas stove, I leave the burner on. If I have an electric stove, I can leave the electric burner on. I can put a pot on that flame. I can raise it to make it cook better. I can lower it so it doesn't burn. I can't turn it off. I'm not supposed to turn it on to start with. But we are allowed to cook on Yom Tov. Now let us say, like we saying, for argument's sake, we're saying that electricity is completely forbidden. Okay, so if I want to bake a cake on Yom Tov, that's my wife's job. I don't bake cakes. It's been a long time. Biscuits, though, I used to do. Anyway, I couldn't use a mixer, an automatic, the electric mixer, but I could use a hand mixer. Okay, do you understand the difference, Matthew? Okay, that's fine. That's really what the purpose of a test is, not to trip you up or to see if you know everything. It's for you to get an idea where you know, where you don't know, where to ask questions. We're always going to be in a world in which questions are something we have to ask from time to time. And you have to find resources that will help you when you have those questions. That's what rabbis are really supposed to be, your resource when you have questions about things like that. Yes, Corey?
I know you said that number 17 shouldn't have been on this one, but what was the answer for that? I missed that.
Well, it's Ner Tamid, which means eternal light. We haven't gotten to talking about the synagogue, but the tradition is over the Aron HaKodesh, the Holy Ark, the place where you keep the Torah scrolls. There's traditionally a light left burning. In Hebrew, it's called a Ner Tamid. Ner means a light or a lamp of some kind, whether it's a candle or it's electric. And Tamid means always. It's always on. Okay, so that's what you sometimes have fancy ones, all kinds of different artistic renditions of those lamps. Okay, Any other questions?
Rabbi, will the final or the exam on December 15th be a similar format of questions?
Exactly. That's the kind of thing I do. I have true or false. I have match. I have guessing. I usually don't do too many fill in the blanks, but I usually, a lot of ABCDs. And sometimes you can have more than one correct answer. I will tell people. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. I knew there was something. Yes.
Question in terms of the test. So I know you said that we could sing on Yom Kippur, but I think for like we were talking, I think in some Orthodox religions, women or Orthodox,
Okay.
can't sing.
I understand what you're saying. Okay. Here's the thing. Within the very traditional Jewish world, there's a statement in the Talmud, and that statement in the Talmud says, "Kol isha erva," a woman's voice is regarded like her nakedness. Now, the idea being that a woman, her voice can certainly be enticing, and so it was understood, I think, correctly to say that when you are reciting the Shema, the point there was that a man should not be distracted by a woman's voice, and he should be able to keep his mind on the recitation of the Shema. From that, many derived that men are not supposed to hear a woman's singing voice. Some will go even further than that. They don't even like to have women give a class. So in some Orthodox synagogues, it is possible that the women don't sing at all. Or as in the case of most Orthodox synagogues, the men and women are separated in some manner. Therefore, if the women don't sing real loud, then they're not concerned with it. But yeah, that's true. My brother-in-law, well, I'll start with my brother-in-law, my brother was a very Orthodox, we would call it Haredi in modern parlance. Didn't have a lot of girls, but they never sang at the table on Shabbat. Neither does my granddaughter for my older son. My second son, so far as I know, his wife is still singing, at least when we have at the table. But there are those kinds of things. So that does exist. That does exist. I won't deny. Does that answer your question? Okay. All right.
Sorry, yes, it definitely does answer my question.
More than you wanted to know. Okay.
No, that was actually really good. Thank you.
Sometimes you can make answers yes or no, but usually the correct answer is going to be much more than one or two words. Only water. Just in case you're wondering.
One other question. So this practice test, so this is just up to cover the questions up to that we've learned now, but there's going to be more stuff than
What'll
between now and
happen is
December.
on December 15th, you will be responsible for everything that we learned this term. But I do not usually ask questions on the next exam from the first term, unless it's germane to what we do that at that time. All right.
So is there going to be like, since we've only, we're only like, I guess, halfway through the first section, or are you going to do another sort of practice test
No,
for the stuff we cover between now and December?
I don't usually do so. And there will be more than those. That usually the test is somewhere between 70 and 100 questions, give or take. By the way, I just want to report to you, I did get a few responses about Zooming the classes. We had a meeting of the rabbis on Thursday on Zoom, and we're going to meet again next month to continue talking because they're concerned that maybe we should have at least once in several sessions, have a meeting together to be together. I don't know. All right, nothing has been decided. And so far, all the responses that I've had have been asking to stay with Zoom. So we will see, because I know we have one student that's going to be in the States, and Nicole, are you in Regina? Is Nicole here? Nicole, are you here in Toronto, or are you all the way out there in Saskatchewan?
I'm out in Regina. Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting myself.
Okay, that's all right. You know, that's a long ways to be able to hear it. You know, I feel like one of those people. I've never met someone from Saskatchewan. I never met somebody who's Jewish. Do you really have horns? Don't laugh too much. There are people who say that. All right.
Oh, Rabbi, will the test be in pairs or it's going to be individual?
I ask you to do it individually. You know, you're on your honor. It's an honor system. I can't really, you know, monitor you. I guess some people have had tests where they have to be online while they're taking the test, and the tester gets to look at you and see you. Oh, I wonder what they're doing there. What's that note going around? Look, you're adults. I treat you like adults. And as I said, the test is mostly for your benefit than anything else. The other rabbis want to have an idea what you know, so they can, if necessary, they can help fill in any blanks as well. But it's really, I've never had someone who did poorly on the test and therefore didn't pass the class. Some people are not book learners. Some people have different abilities, and we recognize that. And everyone is only expected to do as well as they can. All right? So that's not worry about it. Secondly, I asked if you can, now I've got the books. I will send you by email the pages that we're going to be doing each week. But if you would like to have a copy of the book, I will mail it out if necessary. But otherwise, I would rather not have to go and put the money out. The book's free. You don't pay for the book. All right. So, but if you can drop by sometime and pick up your copy, that would be very nice of you to do. Especially Nicole, I want to see her walking over from Regina just to pick it up. Okay. See, that's the problem. We don't sit with each other. I have to look around and see if I see a grin when I make my jokes. And then there are those who don't want me to see their faces and they're hiding. I never know for what reason they're hiding. I don't ask. I don't want to know. But I do have clothes on. I have my shirt on. I have my pants. Although when I graduated from the seminary, my hometown synagogue wanted a picture for their yearbook that they have, the bulletin or yearbook. And so my wife took a picture. I put on a jacket and a tie, and I had my shorts on underneath, but it was only from the top up, so they didn't know the difference. Of course, in those days, we didn't have internet. Okay, Hebrew. First of all, let's understand, why is it important to know Hebrew? If those of you who may have a Catholic background will know that the Catholic Church, their liturgy up until modern period was in Latin. And they seem to have done okay, although they decided they wanted to change the liturgy into the vernacular. And of course, there's some traditionalists, they fight over that. They prove that Christianity derives from Judaism because they fight with each other. But Judaism has felt that Hebrew is essential to our connection. If you really want to know what a book says, you can't read it in translation. Every act of translation is an act of interpretation. And you miss out something when you don't know the text, the real meaning, the real words of the text. So Jewish texts, the Bible, the Mishnah, the law codes, many other items are written in Hebrew, either biblical Hebrew or what we call rabbinic Hebrew. Today, of course, there's modern Hebrew, which is not the same as the other two. Then also Aramaic. Aramaic was used for the Talmud. Few of our prayers in Aramaic, and it's a language similar to Hebrew, just like French and Spanish are similar to each other, but different as well. And if I go anywhere in the world, I've had the pleasure, besides going to Israel, I've been in Germany, and I've been in France, and I've been in Italy, and I've been in Romania, Czechoslovakia, left out is France, Germany, Hawaii, but I don't think that counts. Anyway, go to the synagogue, open the prayer book, the Siddur, and I join in. I can do that because the traditional synagogue has their service in Hebrew. There may be a prayer or two that's in the vernacular, but when the Hebrew is the basic language of prayer, a Jew can go to any synagogue anywhere in the world, even if their ritual's a bit different. If you go to a Sephardi synagogue, I sometimes get lost, but I still can follow in the Hebrew in the prayer book. So for those reasons, Hebrew is vitally important to one's continuation in Jewish life. All right. Now, you should know that Hebrew is an ancient Semitic language. It's related to a number of languages that are no longer spoken. As I said, it's related to Aramaic. It's related to Arabic. Indeed, sometimes we can see the relationship in Hebrew to greet somebody, say Shalom Aleichem, right? Peace unto you. And you respond, Aleichem Shalom, unto you peace. That's the traditional greeting. Shalom Aleichem, Aleichem Shalom. In Arabic, it's Salam Alaikum, Alaikum Salam. And you can hear that really they're the same words. Salam, Shalom. Aleikem, Aleichem, Aleikum. That's not my variation. In Hebrew, a camel is a gamal, and in Arabic, it's a gamal. Right? Abba, Av is father, more formal. Abba is a little more like daddy. And in Arabic, Abu is father. Okay, so that's why modern scholars, when they look at Hebrew, the Bible, they also look at it through the lens of other languages that were current at that time to sometimes help explain words and meaning of words. But I don't expect you, at least not immediately, to become Bible scholars when we finish with this course. And as a matter of fact, I'm just hoping you'll be able to read on the very basic level. That's all I can teach you on this format. There is another format that I sent a letter out to you if you're interested in. We don't demand you take another class, but it is available through Beth Emeth. I hope you got the emails. And if anybody did not get that email, let me know. Nobody seems to have missed it. And they will be doing a similar pattern, but a little bit different. So you might find it helpful to take the two different classes together. And also, what's vitally important is practice. The only way you're going to be able to learn to read Hebrew is practice, practice, and more practice. That's one of the reasons we suggest, attendance at synagogue services when you can attend in person, listening to synagogue services over Zoom, if that is what you can do. And reading along once you have got that capacity to do so. But even just listening and picking up sounds and words will help you as we go along. Now, we've used a number of different texts over the course of the years. The one that we're going to be using now is actually was put out through the Reform book publishers, but it happens to be a very nice a way of doing it. And so we are going to use that. Okay, the Acrobat. I'm trying to get this up here. All righty. What page are we on here? Oh, I want Hebrew parrot one. Okay. I hope everybody can see the screen here. The way this works is we have a goal. The goal is to be able to read a certain text. In this case, the authors of this version decided to use the bracha, a blessing, because you're all learning and going to learn different blessings as we go along. All right. And so we are going to start off learning the blessing for the fruit of the vine, which is the kiddush, blessing for wine. And the first word of every bracha is the word Baruch. And we're going to begin, therefore, learning how to read Baruch Atah Hashem, or Adonai. Remember, as it points out here, Hebrew is read from right to left. The reason we read from right to left is the same reason that in English we read from left to right. Yes, because nobody knows. Okay. The Hebrew in the Bible does not have vowel signs, the original Hebrew text. It was a consonantal alphabet. Okay? And in the 9th, 10th centuries, the voweling system that we use today was created and began to appear to what we have till today. And so you will not learn without vowels. You will learn using the vowels, signs to help you. So the first letter that we're going to learn is in Hebrew, the letter Bet. It's actually the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet. And again, to show comparisons, the Hebrew alphabet is related to the Phoenician alphabet, which is related to the Greek alphabet. The first letter in Greek is Alpha, and in Hebrew it's Aleph. Beta, Bet, Gamma, Gimel, Delta, Dalet. You see, the names are related to each other. The forms of the letters have changed. And this is the form of the Hebrew that we have since the Babylonian exile. So the first letter is the letter Bet. Notice it's got a dot in the middle. That dot in the middle, okay, that tells you that it's a B. When dots appear in letters, they usually mean it's either a doubling of the letter or it's an air stop. In this case, it's what we call an air stop. Without the dot, the sound would be well, you say B, put your lips together, right? Everybody say B, B. All right, unmute yourselves, by the way. I want to be able to hear your mumbles there. Everybody unmute. Unmute. Not everybody's unmuted. I can see that. So come on. Come on.
Ba.
Okay. All right. Now, when you say ba, your lips come together, correct? Ba. If you did...
כמו בית.
בית.
גם כן תראה את זה כמו בית.
The letter bet was originally a picture of a house, or it was a pictogram. The first letter of the word for house in Hebrew is bet, bait, and the name of the letter is bait.
וגם כן ג' כמו קמל.
Ken, aluf, aleph,
נכון.
letter aleph, as originally was written, was a head of an ox.
The hero.
Aluf,
אלוף העולם.
an ox, aluf.
היינה.
Okay.
זה רק בכיף.
עוד פעם?
זה רק בכיף.
בכיף.
כן.
Right. So so in those who are following our Hebrew conversation, certain letters have a air stop in form and a non-air stop form. So letter bet, you stop the air. When you put your lips together, the air stops.
Mhm.
If you try to say B, but you don't put your lips together completely, you don't let them meet, and you want to say B, you'll say all right?
Mhm.
So if there's no dot in it, it becomes a vet. The difference between the bet and the vet is the dot inside. The dot tells you it's an air stop. Okay? For those Hebrew readers out there, you just have to go along. And if you hear me say something incorrect, please let me know, because I do make mistakes, believe it or not. Also, we are learning the pronunciation, which is known colloquially as the Ashkenazic pronunciation. No, I'm sorry. I said that and I knew I was going to make a mistake. We're not using the Ashkenazic pronunciation. We're using what is called, again, it's colloquially the Sephardic pronunciation. That's the pronunciation that is used in Israel. That is the pronunciation that was used in North Africa and in various parts of the Middle East. There are some differences. Those of you who may have learned Hebrew with the Ashkenazi pronunciation will have to live with that. On the other hand, we're not 100% just like the Israeli accents that we're going to hear. We don't always make the same. The Tzera, we'll see certain vowels are sometimes done a little bit differently. All right. So anyway, so everybody, I hope you can see the screen or you have your own paper in front of you. This is the morning prayer that we're supposed to say after arising. I'm going to read it slowly, and you can look and see where the letter bet appears in the text in front of you or on the screen, okay? So I want you to keep your eyes on it as we go along, okay? So we have Elohai, Neshama, Shenatata, B, right? Tohora, E, Ata, oops, Burata. I see there's the bet again. All right, so we have Ata, Yatsarta. Yeah, that's Joyce. You're going to teach a class, Joyce, if you don't watch out. Ata, Befachta, B, Viata, Shamra, Bekirbi. All right. Kol Zman, Sheraneshama, Bekirbi. We have two of them there. Notice one's B and the other's B. The vowels tell us that. Modeh, Ani, Lefanecha, Adonai, Elohai, Velohai, Elohei, Avotai, Ribon, Kol HaMa'asim, Adon, Kol HaNishamot, Baruch, Ata, Adonai, Asher, Biyado, Nefesh, Kol Chai, Veruach, Kol Basar Ish. Okay, so we see the bets here a number of times, and one of the first prayers we say in the morning upon rising. Okay, so now we go to the next page. Now, we have to, in English, we have certain letters that are vowel signs, A, E, I, O, U, and of course, sometimes Y. As I said, in biblical Hebrew, there were no vowel letters, although in later stages of the Bible, certain letters began to be used like vowels. For my Hebrew speakers there, David, when it first appears in the Bible, is spelled with Daled Vav Daled. And if you don't have any vowels, you don't know if it's David or Dod. However, in some of the late, especially the later books of the Bible, the letter Yud is placed after the Vav to tell you it's David. Right? But like I said, in the 8th, 9th centuries, we had the creation of the various vowel signs. And the first one we're going to learn is what is called kamats. This is called kamats. I don't necessarily expect you to remember the names of the letters or the names of the vowels, but you do need to know how to pronounce them. All right? So kamats in Ashkenazic Hebrew is pronounced as an O. In the Sephardic pronunciation, it's A, as in Shabbat. All right? And so the order in which we read a syllable is consonant followed by vowel, and sometimes followed by a consonant. In Hebrew, you have two forms of a syllable: consonant long vowel, consonant short vowel consonant. Now, this happens to be a long vowel that may serve us later on, but we're not going to worry about that so much right now. But when we put the kamats with the letter bet, instead of b, we have ba. Okay, everybody see that? So once again, unmute everybody.
Can you, sorry, can you just repeat what you said? I missed it.
You missed it, okay. The letter bet, right? You mean about the, all right. How far back did you need me to go? Real quickly.
Not too far back, just
Okay.
like the last minute.
Okay, in Hebrew, a syllable consists of a consonant and either a long vowel, and that would be a syllable, or a consonant, short vowel consonant, that would be a syllable. The kamats happens to be a long vowel, so it can create its own syllable. You have the consonant followed by the kamat sound. So it's ba. All right, so let's everybody, we're going to read together. One.
Sorry, I had one question too as well. You mentioned that the kamats in Ashkenazic would make an O sound.
Yes.
So how would like Shabbat be written in Ashkenazic versus?
The writing is the same way.
But it's still because wouldn't Ashkenazic still say Shabbat? So
actually,
but they wouldn't say Shabbat.
Probably,
right?
but an Ashkenazic pronunciation, first of all, would be Shabbos, or Shabbos. They often, in Ashkenazic pronunciation, the accent is often moved up a syllable. But the vowel signs are the same. They just
okay. So in that word, it wouldn't make an O sound then.
It would if you were speaking Ashkenazis.
You mean Yiddish or Ashken or?
Okay, if you go, almost every conservative Reform temple, synagogue temple, all use the modern Israeli pronunciation more or less. They always will. They will use the for both the kamats and the patach. It'll always be If they have the same, you can take that same sidur and walk into an Ashkenazi Orthodox synagogue. And they will then read the same prayers, but with the Ashkenazic pronunciation. The most wonderful thing is I have a lot of family now in Israel. I'm the oldest, the next brother in line, next sibling in line, my brother goes by Yisrael, very much a black hat, as they call him, Haredi. His children, they go to shul, they go to the synagogue, and they will be just like they were in Eastern Europe. The prayers will sound just like they sounded in Eastern Europe. Then they will walk out the door and start speaking to each other in modern Israeli Hebrew. Okay? It's dialects. It's dialects. There's the best way to understand is dialects. The words are the same, just sometimes the pronunciation is different. Just like, American English and Canadian English. Took me a while to get a few things straight. What's one of the ones I can think of that's different?
Is it because of the influence maybe of Yiddish? Because it's Lishon Kodesh, right? They think it's the sacred tongue, so they purposefully mispronounce it.
No. I can't give you an answer as to how it developed. It's not a question of mispronunciation. Is Cantonese Chinese mispronounced Chinese?
Well, if you say kosel versus kotel.
No. Kos, all right, bas.
Kos is a cup, like a kos is a cup, a kosel. Instead of kotel maravi, you'll say koisel maravi.
Well, but koisel maravi.
That's because you can't pronounce.
Right? We're getting a little field. I'm sorry?
I thought that's just because you can't pronounce the top because that's God's name or something.
No. They're different.
No, that's different.
That's different. Certain letters and certain vowels developed pronunciations differently. The Sephardic Hebrew is more influenced by Arabic, and even the Sephardi Hebrew is not probably the original pronunciation. The letter David that we pronounce today, David, was probably originally pronounced Dawid, more like the Arabic. If you want to get the closest it seems to be to the ancient Hebrew dialect, you have to listen to a Yemenite Jew. Now, yes, Yiddish is about 25% Hebrew and 75% German. And I don't know if it's because of the German that influenced the pronunciation. So if
So I was just going to ask I think what they were saying before, and this is where I was confused. So when you pronounce from the Ashkenaz Shabbat as Shabbos, does it mean it ends in Shin or does it end in Tav?
All right, just a
moment. When you write it, okay. Right? Because you're pronouncing some T's as S's when you're doing an Ashkenazic, but then in modern Israeli or Sephardic, you pronounce them as Tav, as T.
All right. Let's not use that one here.
I just feel like we're not to interject or anything, but just so that we're going a little bit. I feel like just it's going to be pretty simple, yeah.
I think you're right. Maybe at the end, if anybody wants to hang around, we can discuss how it all worked out that way. Okay, you're right. I know we were getting too far afield.
Well, just because
I'm going to be having to speak Hebrew or
no. You're going to have to be able to read the Hebrew.
But
the pronunciation that we are teaching is a pronunciation that you will find being used in the synagogues most likely that you will attend.
Right.
So we're going to have to fully read Hebrew or just like prayers? Like what's the kind of...
We hope you will be able to read the prayer book, the Siddur, the Chumash that you have in Shul, the Chumash, excuse me. So I sometimes slip into those pronunciations as well. I'm not sure who I was discussing it with. All right. So let's go back to the screen here. Oh, that was not what I wanted. Hit the wrong one. Share screen. PDF. Where's my PDF? Oh, there it is. Okay. So let's just work with what we have in front of us now. I stand correct. Okay, guys? So let's all read it together. Unmute yourselves. Be self-conscious. I know that.
Unmuted, babe.
Unmutating. Okay. You're not a mutation anymore. Okay, together now we have ba, 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 okay. All right. So you now have one Hebrew letter and one Hebrew vowel at your command. Not going to get very far with one letter and one vowel. So we're going to work on the second letter in the word Baruch. And the second letter of Baruch is the Resh. Here's where I say, I will pronounce it as an R, as in Rosh Hashanah. I don't roll it. A good Israeli will roll his Resh. I can't, and I won't. All right. Again, it's not right or wrong. It's just the way we do it. All right. So this will always be pronounced like the letter R. Follow? It's always going to be R. So line number 1, let's unmute. Let me highlight it and then you read it, okay? Otherwise, we're going to have total confusion. Okay, line 2. We have
Bar.
Right, bar. Notice that. Bar. I see a bar over there. Okay.
Bar.
Notice this is a syllable now because we have a consonant vowel, although it's a long vowel. As a consonant, that's bar. In Aramaic, bar means son.
What?
So the bar mitzvah means the son of, or actually, we'll talk about that later on. We talk about what bar mitzvah really means. But literally, it's the son of a commandment. That's not very literal. Okay. Next letter we have is Ra. Last letter. Ra. Okay, line 3.
Rob. You're getting this.
All right, they're nonsense syllables most of the time until we see it. We'll have a few words here and there. Okay. Okay, so now you see how this is how it works. Without the vowels, you wouldn't know how to pronounce. They're nonsense syllables. There's no real pronunciation anyway, but that's the reality that you have there. Okay, we're now 4. Okay, now we're going to go to the next letter vowel. All right. This is how it is written today. It's called a shuruk. It's a vowel indicator. It's an oo. When it has a dot in the middle, it's oo. You know, if somebody punches you in the stomach, what do you say? Ooh. Ooh. And the reason we say that is because there's going to be another form of the vowel later on with a dot on top. And then there's another form where it's just a consonant without any dots. Okay. So they say ooh or you, ooh as in Shavuot. Ooh, ooh. Okay. All right, gentlemen, ladies, and everybody else, let's try now. Line number 1. We have ooh, all right. If you don't know, the accent, assume the last syllable is accented. In Hebrew, about 75% of the time, the last syllable is going to be accented. Right?
Rabu.
Barur. And say barur lacha. Okay. Stop. Number first one. Okay. We have oo.
Urabu.
And this one is
line number 5.
Another
It's still, so far, it's still easy because we only have so many. What? Okay. So now we go to our last page we're going to do tonight, the Schwa. The Schwa is a very strange creature. It, as it explains here, is a vowel which is pronounced faintly. The smallest sound you can make. It sounds like the in Shema. This is an I there on the way. And if you know phonetics, if anybody's a teacher and taught phonetics, in phonetics they call it a Schwa. It's the sound necessary to be able to pronounce a consonant. When you say B, when you want to say the letter B to pronounce it, that's the minimum sound that you have to go along with it, the B. So right now, we are going to learn it as being pronounced as a very slight sound. Okay? As B, R, B, Baru, Rabu, Barur. Okay? All right, everybody, let's go on. Unmute yourselves. No more mutants.
No.
No more mutants. I know. I'm the comedian here. Let's watch it there, people. Okay. Number 1, line 1.
It's like eyes and shit.
Listen, I can hear there's some issues here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why we do it this way. It's the minimal. And let's take the first one. I'll go back to the first one of line 1. It's not buh. Buh. It's just buh. Buh, ruh, buh. And even here, I'm really accenting it too much, accentuating it too much because it's by itself. So when you get to a combination, it's not baru, it's baru. It's not bruh. Right? We don't say bruh in Hebrew. Right? Brew. We don't have, we're not having a brew, but we say brew, baru, rabu, barur. Ahim said barur. Is it clear now? Barur means clear. In case you didn't know that. Clear? All right, now, here's why it's a problem. That for some unknown reason, the creators of the voweling system use the same symbol for 2 different things. When it's at the beginning of a syllable, and that's always the case at the beginning of a word, you pronounce it. If it's at the end of a syllable, it will not be pronounced. It's just indicating there's no vowel there. So the example they give you here is bar and bar are the same thing. You would never write today, if I were writing and putting in vowels for a word, I would never do that. I would only do bar. Okay. But again, this is for you to know, to practice. So, and normally this vowel sign does not, if that's the long vowel, they won't be together like that. That's another issue that we're not going to worry about right now. Okay. So now let's look at like,
sorry. Just a quick question. So for simplicity purposes, we should never have to worry about that being at the end of a word.
99.9%. How's that?
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
There are a couple places. All right. But no, it won't be at the end of the word. Normally, well, like here, even in these the syllables, the silly syllables that we have, unless it's just the 2 letters, you see it's not at the end. I don't think they do that on any of this. Yeah, they do. Oh well, I take it back. But these, remember, what we're doing here is mostly nonsense syllables just for practice. One of the issues, when you learn to read English and you saw the word cat, you knew what a cat was. So to learn read CAT as cat, you could identify it, but you don't know how to speak Hebrew. And therefore, it's much more difficult to learn how to read it. Okay? So line number 2, we have bar, barbur, to the barber. Yeah, all right. I know it's a little different. Okay. Line number 4.
What's this one?
Bar.
And this one?
Bar.
Bar again.
Bar.
Come on. So we have one more letter we're going to learn. And I said it's not at the last letter. That's the example of where it is at the last letter. Baruch. We're not going to go there tonight. That's page 5. I only gave you through 5, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's just review a little bit. Hebrew is not that difficult. The pronunciation of the letters is normally relatively clear. And we're not going to worry about grammar. I might throw something in once in a while just so you know, but all we're really trying to do is to get you to be able to decipher the print in the books so that you can read it and to pronounce it. Some words I hope you will learn. The word Baruch, which for next week, we're going to talk, is a very interesting word and how different shades of meaning and translations for it. But for the most part, we're going to just be working on our pronunciation. You have to practice. Those of you who are a couple and have a partner who knows Hebrew, you're in good shape. You have to work together. You tell them. Now, if you don't have a partner, the letters are spelled out for you. They tell you exactly in the text how to pronounce it. All right? And you can always zip through the video to try and come to the part where we do the Hebrew on it. Joyce, you want to say something? No. Okay. So are there any questions about what we've done tonight? All right. That being the case, if you can, I really would appreciate, because otherwise I'm going to have to schlep to the post office, get envelopes, label them, stick them in the mail, and mail them to you to get the books to you. All right. Some of you who obviously cannot get it, pick it up. I will mail it to you. Otherwise, if you can pick it up, I really would appreciate it. Give me a buzz. Let me know if you can. And if you can't, let me know as well, and I will arrange to mail it to you. Okay? I'm being very lazy this year. I got 24. We're now at 23 students, I think, in the class. All right, 3 units. We go by units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 across. 20, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 23. Okay. So 23 of you here tonight. So, it'd be helpful to me for you to pick it up. Also, your responsibility, and I remind you, is you have to be in touch with your sponsoring rabbi. It's not your sponsoring rabbi's job to go running after you, to find you, to meet with you, to talk with you. If you have personal questions that really are truly personal and are not going to be of benefit to the class, save your questions for your sponsoring rabbi. If it's a question that might be germane to the other people in the class, then we can try and answer it if it's a general kind of thing. Okay. Anything else? All right. I said if anybody wanted to stick around, they could stick around and we'll talk about Yiddish and Hebrew and all those wonderful things. Otherwise, I'll let you and yourselves say goodnight. Okay.
You.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Almost. You guys want to stick around? All right.
I was just
yeah.
The other thing that we were talking about before would be on the page 1 of the when you mentioned I think it was page 1.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was page 2. Page 2 actually, sorry. Where you said the sound of the kamatz is more of an O with in Ashkenazic, but then when you mentioned how the Ashkenazic would pronounce the words, which I'm assuming is Shin Beit Tav, right, would be how it's spelled for Shabbat. But you said we would pronounce it Shabbos, right, which I thought was more of a Yiddish, or Shabbos, which would be more of a Yiddish sound. So is the Tav and Shin being switched up, or how's
the issue? The basic issue is this: the Tav, right, the last letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It can have a dot in it or not have a dot in it. Okay. Everybody pronounces it when there's a dot in it as an air stop. That we get T, right? When it doesn't have a dot in it, it means it's not an air stop. And now, when the Greeks transliterated words from the Bible, there wasn't a Greek word for. Let's take the word Shabbat. How do we pronounce it in English? Sabbath. That's the TH at the end. Sukkot, Sukkos, or Sukkoth, TH on the end. All of those words that had the Tav at the end, it seems that the Greeks heard it being pronounced as a TH.
It's like a theta in Greek.
As theta, exactly. When they wrote it as theta. That's what they heard. Now, the TH sound, if I understand correctly, is not as common a sound in the world. And in Arabic speaking countries, I don't believe there's a TH sound. And Jews who lived in those countries also dropped the TH sound. And so just pronounce it as T, Shabbat. In European countries, now there's a bit of a debate whether the Greeks misheard or not, because when you say T, do you say, is the letter, the tongue at the front of your mouth, the palate, or the back? So if you don't touch your tongue to wherever you're going to touch it, what sound comes out? Is it an S sound? Or it is a th sound?
Yeah.
All right. So in Ashkenazi communities, it became an S sound. So they retained that distinction, but with a dot, without a dot. The kamatz that we were talking about is a long vowel. We haven't done the patach, which is a short vowel. In Ashkenazi communities, they maintained a different sound for the two of them. So that the is an sound, Shabbos. Okay.
Is it a Shabbat? Okay.
Okay. Now,
so I thought that the T was just being changed to like the Shin instead. So I didn't really. Okay.
It's a linguistic issue, and
it's like the Z in Spanish, right? It's like in Spain it's pronounced with the TH sound, but in everywhere else it's an S sound.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Like the shoes in Spanish, zapatos or zapatos.
I'll take your word for my Spanish.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I came from the States. Is the last letter Z or Z?
It's Z in the States, and it should be Z.
You and my daughter agree with each other very much. You must be an American.
Disagree because it's coming from the Greek, which is zeta, zeta.
Yeah, but you see, language. There's a marvelous book I just finished reading on what is it called? The author's Mars. He writes for the New York Times on language. He was talking about, it's a book on curse words, but he gives you a bit of a lesson in linguistics and how languages change and words change and meanings change and how they flow. So as Jews moved to different parts of the world, they couldn't help but be influenced in some way, in some manner. When I went to Camp Ramah as a youngster, one of my fellow campers, I don't have much of a Southern accent anymore, I don't think. Some people can hear it. But he was a good Georgian, and he was leading the Birkat HaMazon. Birkat HaMazon begins with the introduction of Rabbatai Nevarech. Most of the time, I will say Rabbatai. He came out with Rabbatai Nevarech. There's a real twang in his Rabbatai. Right? That was just the influence of his accent. The joke is Shalom Y'all. Okay? And we'll see signs that say Shalom Y'all. So now, I don't know who I was arguing back and forth with. It's not a question of mispronunciation. It's not a question of intentional changing. If anything, it is a very conservative approach. Ashkenazic orthodoxy is very reticent to change. That's why it is very insistent upon the Ashkenazic pronunciation for prayer. Even if they speak perfect Israeli style Hebrew on the street, as I said, my nephews and nieces, in prayer and in study, they use the Ashkenazic. And in Ashkenazic, there's two couplings. Some of the pronunciation of the letters and vowels, but also accents. I don't know why the accents shift. There's a reason for it somewhere. I'm sure somebody knows. So the Western Wall, it's not the Wailing Wall. It never was called the Wailing Wall. The Western Wall, in Hebrew, the word kotel means a wall. Maravi means Western. Kotel HaMaravi. Now, in Sephardic Hebrew pronunciation, it's kotel. Kaf with a dot, if you had vowels. A dot on top of the vav, tell you it's an O sound, kotel. The Ashkenazic pronunciation would be kosel. But because of accent shifts, instead of the last syllable being accented, you move it to first. So it's not kosel at Maravi, it's koisel. Koisel Maravi. It's the same letters, the same vowels, it's all the same. If you wrote it down on a piece of paper, it'd be identical. But one would read it kotel, and one would read it kosel, or kosel, or even koisel. So sometimes the O, some Ashkenazic O's become an oi. Boychik, it's a Yiddish word, right? But koisel, not kosel, but koisel. Right?
So when you were saying earlier that the accent would be on the end usually, or the last syllable, that's the modern Hebrew?
That's correct Hebrew. Okay. Even Ashkenazic Hebrew is correctly accented on most of the time on the last syllable. But a lot of people who use the Ashkenazic pronunciation shift it. So they're mispronouncing it. They're really mispronouncing it. If they're reading from the Torah in some synagogues, they would correct them. Even though they're pronouncing it the Ashkenazi pronunciation, they would say you've got to pronounce it with the accent in the right place. You see, when we read from the Torah, there are additional symbols to tell us how to chant it. Right? And those symbols usually appear on the accented syllable. And so that will be a giveaway how it should be pronounced.
So for example, like how is it Havdalah or Havdalah?
Okay, again, all right.
Yeah.
If you walk down the street in Israel, you'll say Havdalah. If you walk into a synagogue, it depends. It's Havdalah, Havdalah. Say it which way you want. You can say Shabbat Shalom, and he'll say back to you, Good Shabbos. I get in Shabbos. You go to shul, you go to shil. That's Yiddish.
Or is it Eretz Yisrael or Eretz Yisrael?
Yeah, Eretz Yisrael. My brother.
Depends on where you walk on Bathurst Street, right?
I tell you, I wear a black hat on Shabbos walking the shul. It's just my thing. Okay, but I'm not a black hatter. But you know, you're walking down the street, you're walking through the park, and there's a game we play, in our minds at least. Here comes somebody else. Does he have a knitted kippah on, or does he have a black hat? If it's a knitted kippah, you're going to assume you're going to say Shabbat Shalom. If he's got a black hat, you're going to say Good Shabbos. Sometimes you'll have the reverse. They'll say to you Shabbat Shalom when they got a black hat on and I'm wearing a black hat. And the guy with a kippah might say Good Shabbos to me because I got a black hat on, thinking I got to hear a Good Shabbos. And even if I don't have a black hat on, I don't know what I'm going to hear from the person. Okay. And so what happens also is a lot of words that become very common words that are used. I come from this background that's all mixed in. So sometimes I go one way or another when I say something. I'll say Shabbos often, right? Just like I say often, and I pronounce the T in often. But
that's the American way, though, right?
Technically, but even there, it's language is corrupt.
Yeah.
And that's the same.
So you mentioned in the Torah, in the Sefer Torah, there's
not in the Torah
accent.
If you pick up,
but on the scrolls, right?
If you pick up a chumash, okay, a book of it has the vowels in it. It has what we call a trope, the symbols for chanting. The Torah scroll itself is only a consonantal text, the same way it's been written for thousands of years.
But in terms of the chanting, the accents on the chanting, so because I don't have much experience, but I've heard the Sephardic chanting, which sounds like completely different. It almost has that sort of Middle Eastern-y, almost like Arabic, right?
Now that's a different thing too. There are different trope sounds for different times of the year too. I'm not very good at going back and forth. Let me just try. Let's see. When you go to shul, go to shul. When you go to the synagogue this Shabbat, or just like shul, synagogue, temple, those are all things that are modern. Okay, wait a minute. Right about it. Okay, the Kedat Yitzchak, the way it would be pronounced, at least I would try to sing it this way. It's a little hard for me to see here. Elohim nisa et Abraham vayomer elav Abraham vayomer hineni. Okay, that's a way of chanting the Torah. Now, on Rosh Hashanah, it's different. Same signs, but it sounds like something. Nisa et Abraham, vayomer elav Abraham, vayomer hineni. That's both a variant of an Ashkenazi trope, but one's for Rosh Hashanah. I can't do the Sephardi very well at all. I butcher it if I try to do the Sephardi, but it is very, very different. And then there are differences. It depends if you come from Morocco or you come from Yemen or Syria. They all have variants on their musical history there with them. Yeah.
But because I've heard the argument that the Ashkenazic, sort of what you were explaining before with the retaining of the tav sound, I've heard that technically, like the Ashkenazic is the absolute, like, phonetically correct way, whereas the Sephardic is more of a cultural idiosyncrasy.
No, well, I don't think that's fair, 100%, because all likelihood we never pronounced it as an S. If you go by the Greek, as I said, the Greek transliteration, in Greek, for words that they were just transliterating, just giving you names of things, they used theta. They didn't use sigma. I'm using up most of my Greek now, right? But it was a theta. So if it's correct, it'd probably be Shabbath, not Shabbos. Ashkenazi pronunciation does make distinctions between some of the vowels that Sephardic Hebrew drops out the distinctions. And that's much better for learning grammar. I mean, if you have the Ashkenazic pronunciation, it makes the grammar easier to understand and see in your eyes, the way you put the nikud, right? So I said the kamatz is a long vowel, what we call the patach is a short vowel. So that helps you in understanding not only pronunciation of a word, but also the grammar of the word. So, like I said, the Yemenite Jews, those that still retain the full Yemenite way of saying their Hebrew, have a different way of doing it. All right. So, depends where you come from, who you want to brag about. Who's better? It's like every ethnic group has their subdivisions. I grew up in the States, so there's Yankees and Southerners. All right, I was a Southerner by location. By being white, I was a Southerner. Okay, versus Yankees. Here, I was an American for a while. Now I don't know what I am. I'm a Canadian citizen, dual citizenship. But you have Ashkenazic Jews, but even in Ashkenazic Jewry, you have divisions. You have the Jews from Germany, who were Yekas. You have Romanian Jews. You have Jews from different parts of Eastern Europe, Polish, Ukrainian, and their Yiddish sometimes is a little different because they brought in words from where they were, what helped anchor it together is because we had the common holy books. Everybody had the same Torah. Okay, so that anchored, it helped maintain that kind of anchorage. But for the common language, the language on the street, you had Yiddish in Eastern Europe. Germany, some German Jews spoke Yiddish also. You had in Jews who came out through Spain, we call Sephardic Jews, they spoke Ladino, which was a mixture of Hebrew and Castilian Spanish. And Jews in Morocco and other Arabic countries had a Judeo-Arabic. Often it just meant that the local dialect was written in Hebrew letters. But that then affected how some words developed and went in different directions. The word school, right, and shul are related to each other. School is from German. Shul is a school. Hofschule, Hachschule, right? And in Yiddish, it became another name for a synagogue. And sometimes they play game. I'll finish with this. In Prague, there's a synagogue that is called the Alta Nu Schule. If you translate it literally, it's the old new synagogue. So the common explanation is there was a synagogue and they built a new synagogue that became known as the New Shul. But then that became the old New Shul because they built another shul, became the New Shul. Because that was the Alta New Shul or Alta New Shul. But I was told that's really not the derivation of the name, but that's what people heard. So that's where it goes. You're muted. I can't hear you unless you're saying goodbye.
Yeah, we're just gonna log off.
That's okay. I know we're dragging you in. Okay, thank you. Be well.
Okay.
All right, everybody will say good night.
Night.